Hey girls. Y'all should come over so we can talk about this in person. I'll make the coffee. Anyways, okay. So like I said, Crystal, I love when people ask the questions. That way we have to dig. So here's what I came up with, all right? Because just thinking about the character of God and what he stands for, what he doesn't, slavery can't fit. But then you guys are right. Like, you see stuff in the Bible. So how does it fit? All right, so when you go back and you look at Old Testament, well, let me start there. The man in the video said that Christians say that Old Testament isn't relevant and only New Testament is now, so we don't live by Old Testament. So he says slavery isn't mentioned in the New Testament. Okay, what Christians mean by we don't live by the Old Testament is that the Old Testament had a set of laws, and if you broke those laws, you had to go sacrifice something for those. You had to live strictly by the law. And that's very, like, there's really no freedom or no free will in that either. But anyway, something had to be sacrificed for those sins. When Christ came, that's what made it different. So that's what we're saying. We don't live by the Old Testament, meaning Christ is now the sacrifice. So he forgives us, and we don't have to, I guess, live so strictly and which we should live strict. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, we don't have to do everything exactly perfect and then go sacrifice something, and because we can just go straight to him. He's the game changer. So that's what it's talking about, the Old Testament. The Old Testament is still relevant. There's still things in there that we use. Some things, a lot of things have changed, but just like in the real world, today, there's things that we do that we wouldn't have done 50 years ago, 100 years ago, because we've learned some things. So anyway, but everything's relevant. But anyways, okay, so slavery is in the Old Testament, okay? Well, most of what, actually the whole Bible, what the Bible's talking about when it says slavery is more, instead of a racial slavery, it's talking about economic slavery in their time. So an economic slavery would mean that you owe somebody a debt and you can't pay that debt, so now you're going to work it off. So I owe somebody $1,000, then I'm going to go work for them. I'm going to be their slave. I'm going to work that money off until I can pay that debt. Okay, and then you see Paul later say, okay, this is a good thing, but it's getting out of hand because of the way you're treating these slaves. Okay, so you can't, like, keep them forever. So he puts a cap on it and says 7 years. So if that debt's not paid off in 7 years, then we're all just going to forget about it and go home. Like, you shouldn't have, maybe given them more money than they could pay back. So that's where Paul deals with that. But let's see. In Exodus 21:16, it's very clear cut about slavery. And again, this is Old Testament, where he said Christians say Old Testament doesn't matter, but I explained that. So Old Testament. So in 16 it says, anyone who kidnaps somebody and either sells him as a slave or still has him when he is caught must be put to death. So obviously, no, God doesn't stand for that. 100%. So that would be like slavery we talk about today. The other slavery, like I said, is something totally different. Let's see. I don't know if you guys have ever read Philemon, but it's a great book. So Paul in Galatians, he talks a little bit about slavery. This is New Testament now. And he talks about slaves and masters and how they should, how slaves should, like, rejoice in their work and listen to their master and things, which again is paying off the debt. But that's not to reinstate slavery or to encourage it, but that's so they can move to a different place of change. Okay, and that's what we see in Philemon. Philemon has a slave owner, and they become really good friends, and something happens between them, and the slave runs away. And he actually runs to the prison where Paul's at, and he kind of reaches out to Paul and says, hey, you got to do something. Like, this is a situation. This is what's happened. So Paul actually shares Christ with this slave, and he becomes a Christian. And Paul writes back to the owner and says, hey, you should take him back. You as a slave, you should take him back. You should care for him. You should let him live with you, provide for him, all of that stuff. and allow him to work for you. But you should accept him. Sorry, that's my washer. It's bad. You should accept him and love him as a brother now. So you should invite him in as family, and you should take care of him as his family, not as, just somebody paying back your debt as a slave. And that's showing Christian love, and that's showing love thy neighbor. Okay, so we went from slavery is okay to slaves take pride in the work you're doing. I mean, you're paying back a debt. Take pride in that work that you're doing because you owe them that money back. Listen to your master, whatever. And then now to being like, hey, love that person as your brother, as family. And so it just becomes a beautiful thing. But slavery as we have today, sex slavery, slavery that we've had in the past, absolutely not. God doesn't go for that. It's totally against what he's all about. And another thing too, okay, New Testament, you see everybody up in arms because, the Jews and the Gentiles, they can't be together. They're unclean. And it's just, oh no, my battery's going dead. It's just like a back and forth all the time. I can't be by you, and I can't drink out of the same fountain as you. Okay, there's division there. And then Christ comes and he's like, no. Like, everybody's the same. You can all come together now. You can all fellowship now. Like, Christ is the one who changed all of it. So absolutely not. When somebody is thinking that Christ is about slavery at all, that's probably just because they're hearing bits and pieces. Or maybe you see something that you don't quite understand. Okay, this has nothing to do with slavery, but it's good. So I don't remember where it is in the Bible. I can look it up if you guys want. But I remember being in Sunday school once, and we read this passage about a brother. Well, I guess he was a king or something. And he had all these sisters, from like different moms or whatever, because his dad had been with different ladies. So anyway, he sees his sister and he's in love with her and he has to have her. And he has the guards bring her. Anyway, she's the most beautiful thing ever, apparently, in the whole land. And so the guards bring her to him and he rapes her. Like, the guards are outside the door and they can hear what's going on, but they're not allowed to go in the room. Like, nobody stops it. But this brother just had to have his sister, which is already gross. But he just had to have his sister. And so he rapes her. But then as soon as he gets done raping her, he just feels disgusted by her. And she's no longer attractive to him. And he's, she's a piece of junk. And disgusting. Get out of my sight. And so back in that day, then you would have to tear your clothes and you would wear ashes on your head, showing that, hey, you've been raped and you're disgusting and you can't be loved or unclean, whatever. Insane. But anyways, so she did that, and so she walked around like that, and he gets counsel. Okay, they figure out what he did, and they tell him, okay, now you have to marry her and take care of her, or no, you have to marry your sister. And that did not sit well with me, because I thought, if you've just been raped by somebody, why in the world would somebody tell you to marry them? Like, I don't want to be connected to my rapist. That does not make any sense. And I couldn't understand why the Bible would say that. But then as I looked more into the culture there, and I asked questions, right, which some people aren't okay with, but thankfully my teacher was, and we discovered that, okay, back in that day, a widow would not have made it. There was no way for you to make income on your own. Okay, and she already had the ashes on her, so nobody else was going to take her at all. So kind of like as his punishment, but a way for her to survive. Okay, now you have to marry her, which does not sit well. Like, that relationship probably never got repaired, and it was probably uncomfortable, but she would have died if not. Like, not only would he have raped her, but she would have died. So yes, when we read it, it doesn't sit well with us. It's not something that we would ever want, that we can even fathom, because that's not okay. But she would have died. And so he had to take care of her and provide for her, just as the husband would. So yeah, sometimes we just read it in how our day and age, and it's not. We have to go back and look at the culture and see what they meant. Also, one more thing, and then I swear I'll stop. I don't even know if it'll upload this 10-minute video. Do y'all hear my washer? Okay, so tattoos. The Bible talks about believers shouldn't get a tattoo, or you shouldn't put tattoos on your body. Okay. But when you go back and you look, okay, because I'm a Christian with tattoos, so people will say that a lot. But when you go back and you look, tattoos in that day and age was like a serial number, like a mark of who you belong to, saying, hey, this is my master, I belong to that person. And God strictly is like, hey, no, you don't belong to anybody except for me. You're mine. I made you. I'm your master, whatever. And not master in a bad way, but it's a beautiful thing. And so that's what it meant by tattoo. It doesn't mean what we have today. So that's another thing too, that we just kind of think we know what we're talking about, and we don't have any idea what they were talking about. So anyways, okay, if y'all have something else, let me know. Let me know if you agree with it, or if you don't, or maybe something you found, because that's good stuff. All right, well, I miss you guys a whole bunch. You should come over. Okay, love you, bye.